This is the second video for section 1.2 on graphing a linear equation. Let's take one of those equations from problem 1 on our handout and review how to create a graph of the equation. So I picked this 2x plus 3y equals 3. There are many ways of drawing graphs. I'm just going to review the simplest way with you. The first step is that it's helpful to put the equation in that good format, that y equals mx plus b format, which basically just means solve the equation for y. It looks like it'll take me a few steps to do that. The first thing I'll do is I'll subtract 2x from both sides. That leaves me with 3y equals negative 2x plus 3. I'm just trying to isolate the y. Then I'll divide both sides by 3. On the left, I do have a y by itself. On the right, to finish it off, I'll just need to distribute this denominator of 3 into both parts. And so that gives me negative 2/3 x plus 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. The simplest way to draw a graph is simply to find some xy solutions that satisfy the equation. In other words, some xy pairs that make this particular equation true. I'm going to organize the information in a table, an xy table. The great thing about lines is they go on forever in both directions. And so eventually every single x value will show up on the line, which means I can start anywhere I want in terms of finding these xy solutions. A common starting place is to start with an x value of 0, just because it's a fairly simple value to use. How do I get the y that goes with it? I simply go back to my equation, replace the x with a value of 0, work out the math, and then I'll be left with the corresponding y. 0 is so easy to work with, you can probably just do it in your head. Negative 2/3 times 0 is 0 plus 1 equals 1. And so I get y equals 1. And now I have an ordered pair that I know is a part of this equation and graph, the point 0, 1. Now, a lot of times people will then pick, say, an x of 1 or an x of 2. But if you look back at the equation, that's probably not going to be very helpful. It's not helpful for me to end up with fractional values here. I need nice integer values. If I fill in 1 or 2 for this x, I'm going to have kind of a mess to deal with. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to pick an x that when we insert it here, it's going to essentially wipe out that fraction. Well, since the denominator is 3, picking a multiple of 3 is going to be the secret here. So I could pick 3, I could pick 6 would be a good choice. If I needed a fourth point, I could pick negative 3 or negative 6. Any of those would work well. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to choose 3 points when drawing a line by hand. So let's at least fill in these next couple of rows here. Again, I just need to go back to my equation, inserting these x values and working out the math. So when I fill in 3 for my x, here the 3's would cancel. I'm left with negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. And then if I fill in 6 for the x, what might be helpful here is to write it as 6 over 1, just to make it look like a fraction. I can do some canceling here. 3 goes into 6 twice. And then negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 1 is negative 3. If I wanted to, I could fill in that last blank, but I think we have enough now to draw our graph. Each row in the table is essentially an ordered pair that we now know is on the graph of our equation. Let's jot them down as ordered pairs. So we have the point 0, 1. We had the point 3, -1. And we had the point 6, -3. To draw the graph of this linear function, we need to make ourselves a set of axes. I'll label the axes, the x-axis and the y-axis. And then I'll need a little bit of scale. Obviously, it's a little easier to do this when you have a piece of graph paper or a pre-made grid. I'll just count by ones. It's important to show that. And then I'll make a dot at each ordered pair. So I've got the point 0, 1. And then I've got 3, -1, right 3 and down 1. And then for that third point, it looks like I need a little bit more scale. 3, 4, 5, 6. And I need to go right 6 and then down 3. And then if we had a ruler on a piece of paper, we take it and we try to draw the straightest line that we can through those points. We say that this line is the graph of that equation. Now, let me show you how you can check your work on your graphing calculator. So here's a display of the graphing calculator. I've turned it on. The graphing buttons are located here at the top. My first stop is this button that says y equals. That's where you type equations into the calculator. You'll notice the y and the equals are already there for you. So we just need to type in the right side of our equation, which was -2/3 x plus 1. The negative button is down here at the bottom. It's different from the subtract. -2, I'll use the division symbol for the fraction to give myself -2/3. The x button is right here, -2/3 x plus 1. So my equation is now typed in. The next thing I need to do is I need to tell the calculator how much of the graph I want to see. Well, if the numbers seem pretty normal, like they do in this example, there is a pre-built window you can use by choosing Zoom, and then choice 6 is called Z Standard. And what this window does is it essentially just draws 10 tick marks in each direction. So it's gone from -10 to +10 on the x and -10 to +10 on the y. You can see that by hitting the window button, and you're in control. If you want to see something else, you can change it. But what that Z standard did is create -10 to 10, counting by ones on the x, and -10 to 10, counting by ones on the y. To go back to the graph, I can simply hit the graph button. Now this looks like the one that we made on the paper. If I really want to double check, there's this great button called Trace. And if I choose Trace, what I can do is I can now type an x value. For example, let's type x equals 6, hit enter, and the calculator will take me to that spot on the graph. Well, you can see at the bottom there, 6, -3. That was one of our points. Or now I could hit 3 and hit enter, and sure enough, 3, -1, and so that helps me to be confident that we've drawn our graph correctly. Let me close this video with just a couple of comments about drawing lines in my Matlab. So I've pulled up my Matlab. Here's a typical problem. You'll see on the 1.2 homework, I'm being asked to graph this equation. You'll notice it's already in the good format, the y equals mx plus b format. Since this is kind of small, I'm going to use the magnifying glass to enlarge it. And what I need to do, of course, I need to do all the same work on paper that we did before with making the table and so forth. Assuming I've done that already, what I would do is I would simply click the picture of the line, and then the computer just needs me to click in a couple of points from my table. So when I did this on paper, I found that 0, -2 was one of the points. I go there, you can see the coordinates up in the upper right. I'll click that in. And then I also discovered that 5, -6 was another point on the graph. And so when I get there, I'll click that in as well. Save your picture, check your answer, and it's as simple as that.